They say when you leave something unfinished, it stays open in you. I didn't think much about that until a woman I hadn't seen in over 20 years got into my car, and nothing about my life made sense after that. My name's Drake. I'm 45. I live in Indiana now, used to live in Michigan, grew up in Ohio. Married to Georgina, been that way since we were both 24. We have a son, Sam. He's 16, all into cars and football, quiet like I used to be. We live in a split level on a cul-de-sac with a cracked driveway and too many leaves in the gutters most of the year. I work at a local plumbing supply warehouse doing middle management. Georgina teaches music at the high school. It's not a bad life. It's not a thrilling one either. But I figured I did all right. Then it happened. Just a Thursday like any other. I was heading home after a supplier meeting that got cut short. I was early and I didn't feel like going straight home. So I drove around town. Ended up near the college I went to years ago. I hadn't been there in ages. Thought maybe I'd walk through campus for a bit. Stretch my legs. Feel young for 10 minutes. That's where I saw her. Mallory. Back in college, she was the girl. Everyone knew her. Smart, funny, fearless. We weren't a couple, not really. But there was something. A few long talks after class, one night walking home together when we almost kissed but didn't. She had a boyfriend then. I was a mess of nerves. Nothing ever came of it. But I never forgot her. And there she was, standing outside the bookstore, sunglasses on her head, scrolling her phone. I almost kept walking. But I didn't. Mallory? I said. She looked up. Took a second. Then her face lit up. Drake? Oh my God. She hugged me like we were old friends. I guess we were. We talked for 10, maybe 15 minutes. Small stuff at first. She was in town visiting her sister. Lived in Illinois now. Single. Worked in publishing. She asked about me. I said married, 1 kid, warehouse job. She smiled and said I looked the same. I laughed and said she didn't, she looked better. She laughed at that. Then she said, hey, I don't have anywhere to be for a bit. Want to grab coffee? I said yes. We sat in a little cafe across from the campus green. The sun was bright that day, but the light inside was soft, warm. She stirred her tea slowly. I drank a black coffee. The talk moved fast. Past the polite stuff. Into memories. Into things we never said back then. You were the one guy who actually listened, she said. I was too scared to do anything else. She smiled. I used to wait for you after class sometimes. Why? I don't know, she said. Hope, maybe? We finished our drinks. The sky was shifting, clouds rolling in, light turning silver. She said, mind giving me a ride? My sister's place is across town, but I hate taking Ubers. Sure, I said. I didn't think twice. We got into my car. She sat close and the silence between us was comfortable. I drove slower than usual, half hoping we'd hit every red light. About 10 minutes into the drive, it happened. She reached over and touched my hand. Just lightly, but she didn't pull back. I didn't either. I always wondered what would have happened, she said. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I turned down a side road, parked near a closed hardware store. No traffic. No people. She looked at me. And I leaned in. We kissed. Just like that. Afterward, we didn't speak for a minute. Just sat there. Breathing. Looking out the windshield at nothing. I shouldn't have done that, I said. She said, me neither. But neither of us meant it. That's how it started. Not in a hotel. Not at some secret meetup. In a car. In broad daylight. On a road I didn't even know the name of. And I knew right then things were never going to be the same again. After it happened, I dropped her off like I said I would. She gave me one last look before getting out of the car, half smile, half question. Like she wasn't sure what would happen next. Like she wanted me to decide. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. She closed the door and I drove off. The lie started small. That night, I told Georgina I'd stayed late to help sort a shipping error. She didn't ask questions. She never really did. She trusted me. Why wouldn't she? We'd built the kind of marriage. Dependable. Solid. Boring if I'm honest. But now something was different. I couldn't stop thinking about that moment in the car. Not just the kiss. The silence after. The way my heart thudded like it hadn't in years. The way I didn't feel like somebody's dad or husband or warehouse manager. Just felt like a person again. A man. Mallory texted the next morning. Hey, hope I didn't screw up your day. I stared at it for a while. Then typed back, no. I haven't stopped thinking about it. She replied, me neither. We didn't talk about it for a few days after that. But I started finding reasons to text her again. A photo of a sandwich from that old diner we both loved back then. A dumb meme about 90s college fashion. She'd reply fast. always with something funny, something real. Georgina noticed. One night in bed she asked, "You texting someone from work?" I said, "Yeah. One of the guys was sending me updates about inventory stuff." She nodded, rolled over. That was the first real lie. Felt small at the time, necessary even, but it stuck in my throat. Then, a week later, Mallory asked if I wanted to meet again. "Just lunch," she said. "No funny business." I said yes without thinking. This time, I told Georgina I had a supplier meeting over in Fort Wayne, that I might be gone most of the day. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Drive safe." Mallory and I met at a burger place halfway between us. Sat in a booth by the window, ate slow, talked slower, but neither of us mentioned the kiss. Not until we were back in my car. She said, "You regret it?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I regret what it means, but not the moment." She nodded. "Me too." Then she leaned over again, and I didn't stop her. It got physical after that. Not all the way, not yet, but enough. Hands, mouths, heat. I pulled back before it could go too far, but the line had already been crossed. Hell, we'd crossed it days ago. Driving home that day, I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I kept thinking about Georgina, about Sam, about the dinner we'd probably have together. Some normal Tuesday meal. Meatloaf maybe, with green beans from the freezer. And I also kept thinking about how I couldn't go back. Not really. I didn't love Mallory. Not yet. But I wanted to be around her. That part of me that came alive near her. It was awake now, and it didn't want to go back to sleep. That night, Georgina made spaghetti. We sat at the table and talked about Sam's grades, about how the neighbors were putting up Christmas lights too early again. I nodded along, chewed slowly, smiled when I was supposed to. Then I went into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror for 10 full minutes. I didn't recognize who I was looking at, but I wasn't surprised. I knew this was going to get worse, and I knew I wasn't going to stop it. You ever live two lives at once? Not the dramatic kind. Not a spy movie. Just regular life, where you're eating dinner with your family and thinking about a woman who isn't your wife. Where you laugh at your kid's joke and feel guilt creep up your throat like bile, but you swallow it and keep laughing anyway. That was me. For about 2 months after that first kiss in the car, Mallory and I kept meeting. Not often. Every other week maybe. Always in places that didn't feel like real life. A diner outside Lafayette. A park bench in a town neither of us lived in. One time we sat in a grocery store parking lot and just talked until it got dark. The more I saw her, the more the space between those visits started to feel like the lie. Being with her felt like the real version of me, and everything else was just the show I kept putting on. Then it happened. We were parked behind an old office building. It was a Sunday. Georgina thought I was running errands, Home Depot, oil change, whatever I made up that morning. Mallory slid into the passenger seat wearing a thick green coat, her hair tied up. She looked tired. She didn't kiss me right away. She said, "I think I'm falling in love with you." I felt it like a sucker punch to the gut. It was quiet after that. For a long time, I didn't say it back. But I didn't tell her she was wrong either. That was the hook. The moment where it stopped being an escape. Stopped being nostalgia. That's when it became real. I could feel the whole weight of it shifting inside me. Like something breaking loose from the bottom of a lake and rising to the surface. Slow but impossible to stop. I said, "I don't know what I'm doing." She nodded. Said, "I don't think I care." That was the last time we just sat and talked. Next time, we didn't even pretend. It happened in the car. Right there in the front seat, parked under the shadow of a busted streetlight. The windows fogging up while the world outside just kept going. I didn't expect it to go that far that fast. I thought I'd stop it. I'd be the guy who catches himself right before the edge. But I wasn't. It wasn't planned. That's the part that haunts me. It wasn't a weekend getaway or some romantic hotel bed. It was the back of a compact SUV with an old sweatshirt under my back and a half-drunk coffee cup in the cup holder. But I felt everything. After, she curled her knees up and looked out the window. Didn't say a word. I just stared at the ceiling, heart still hammering, breath shaky. I felt like I'd opened a door I could never close again. Driving home, my hands were shaking on the wheel. I missed a turn and ended up taking the long way back. Georgina called once. I let it ring. I walked in through the garage and she was there in the kitchen, folding laundry on the counter. "You okay?" she asked. "You look pale." "Yeah, just didn't eat much." She nodded, said dinner was in the oven. That night, I sat across from her and Sam while they talked about his chemistry test. I nodded along, gave a few mess when I was supposed to, but my mind was still parked behind that office building. I felt split in half. And the worst part was, I didn't want to give it up. That was the hook. Not the kiss. Not the lie. Not even the sex. It was realizing I had something I didn't want to lose, and it wasn't the life I'd spent 20 years building. You ever stand in your kitchen and realize you don't live there anymore? Not physically. I was still in the house. Still drinking the same coffee. Still hearing the same fridge hum. But everything felt foreign. Like I'd been dropped into someone else's life and told to act like it was mine. After that day in the car, I started unraveling faster than I expected. Mallory and I didn't go back to pretending. We didn't text in riddles anymore. We made plans outright. She'd say Thursday night, and I'd find a way to make it happen. I lied about everything: work emergencies, flat tires, last-minute training seminars. And Georgina never blinked. The trust she had in me, it was like a punch every time. One night I came home late, said there was a busted pipe at the warehouse. She handed me a plate she'd kept warm in the oven. Pork chops, mashed potatoes, gravy in a little dish off to the side. Like she always did, because I didn't like it touching the meat. That broke me more than anything Mallory could have said. At Mallory's place, things felt light, like we were kids again. Music playing on her old Bluetooth speaker. A cat that never stopped jumping on counters. Chinese takeout eaten cross-legged on the floor. She kept a toothbrush for me. Bought my favorite soda. She even asked about Sam once. "What's he like?" she said. "Good kid," I said. "Smart. Quiet. He takes after Georgina." She looked at me like she was waiting for something else. I didn't give it. The more time I spent with Mallory, the more I pulled away from everything else. I forgot Sam's soccer game. Showed up late to dinner with Georgina's parents. Left laundry half done, dishes in the sink. I started sleeping on the couch some nights just so I wouldn't have to talk. Georgina asked if I was depressed. I told her I was just stressed from work. She believed me, or maybe she didn't. I remember one Sunday morning, we were sitting on the porch drinking coffee. She looked at me and said, "Do you still love me?" I didn't look up, just sipped my drink and said, "Of course I do." But even I didn't believe that answer. The cracks were starting to show. Sam started keeping more to himself. I'd ask how school was, he'd say fine. I'd ask what he was working on, he'd shrug. I told myself it was just teenage stuff. But deep down, I knew. One night, I came home and Georgina was sitting at the dining table with her phone in her hand. She looked up, eyes tired. "Where were you?" she asked. "Inventory count ran long," I said. She nodded, looked down at her phone. "You smell like perfume." My whole chest locked up. I stood there like a deer in headlights. She didn't yell, didn't accuse, just stood up, walked past me, and went to bed without saying another word. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed while she slept. The fan was on low. Her back was to me. I reached out once, almost touched her shoulder, but didn't. Instead, I got up and went to the couch again. And for the first time, I thought, I think I broke something I can't fix. It all came apart on a Tuesday. You expect big things to fall with some kind of warning. A crack in the ceiling. A creak in the beams. Something. But that morning started like any other. Coffee. Sam mumbling about being late. Georgina packing lunch like it was just another day. But it wasn't. At 2:47 p.m., I got a text from Georgina. "Can you come home early? We need to talk." I sat in my office and stared at it for a long time. Didn't even reply. Just got in the car and drove home with my heart punching at my ribs the whole way. She was waiting in the kitchen. Arms crossed. Phone on the table. I know, she said. That's all she said at first. Just those 2 words. I opened my mouth, closed it, sat down. I went through the phone bill, she said. Saw the number, looked it up, found her. I just nodded. Mallory, right? She said. I nodded again. She didn't cry, didn't raise her voice, just sat across from me like she'd already done all the crying and yelling before I even walked in. How long? She asked. I said, a couple months. Are you in love with her? I didn't answer, and that was enough. She leaned back in the chair, closed her eyes, took a breath like she was steadying herself on something invisible. I want you to leave, she said. I asked, what about Sam? She said, you can see him. We'll work it out. But you can't stay here. So I packed a bag. A small one. A couple shirts, socks, toothbrush. I stood in the hallway, suitcase in hand, and watched Georgina walk into the bedroom and close the door behind her. Sam was at a friend's house. She didn't want me to wait for him. Said it'd be easier that way. I drove to Mallory's that night. Told her everything. She didn't say much. Just let me in. Made space in the closet. Handed me a beer and said, you don't have to explain it tonight. But I could see it in her eyes. She didn't look happy. She looked scared. The next few weeks were a blur. I slept on Mallory's pull-out couch half the time. We were in the same place, but not together. I was distracted, quiet. She started staying up late, working more, leaving earlier in the morning. Sam didn't come by. Georgina said he needed space. I texted him. Called. Nothing. Emily, Georgina's sister, sent me one message. You're a damn coward. She wasn't wrong. Georgina never once screamed. Never begged me to come back. Never asked me why. That silence hurt worse than anything else. Then came the papers. Official. Unmistakable. I got served at work. One of the warehouse guys saw it. Said, damn man. You good. I wasn't. But I said, yeah. At Mallory's, everything felt thinner now. No more laughter. No more takeout on the floor. Just the sound of a bathroom fan. The hum of a fridge. The weight of a decision I thought I wanted. One night, she sat beside me on the couch and said, so, what happens now? I didn't have an answer. She nodded, got up, and went to bed alone. I stayed on the couch. Just stared at the ceiling. Thought about the night Georgina handed me that warm plate of food. Thought about Sam's 6th birthday, how he cried when the cake fell, and I helped him scrape the frosting off the floor. Thought about all the little things that didn't feel like much at the time, and realized I'd thrown away everything real for something that only ever lived in my head. Time passed, but nothing got easier. That was the lie I kept telling myself, that if I just waited long enough, it'd all settle into place. But it didn't. The divorce moved forward. Quietly, like everything else with Georgina. No drama. No outbursts. Just a steady erosion. Mediation. Custody terms. Assets split down the middle. She kept the house. I got the car. We agreed on shared time with Sam, though most weeks he stayed with her. When I did see him, it was awkward. Like I was some uncle he barely knew. We'd go to the movies, eat burgers, sit in silence. I'd ask him about school. He'd nod. I tried not to push. Mallory and I kept drifting. No blow-up. Just less of everything. Less laughing. Less talking. Less us. One Thursday, she came home from work and said, I don't think this is what you thought it'd be. I didn't argue. I just looked at her. She said, I think you needed a door out. And I was the one standing there. I sat there for a while, then said, I think you're right. She left that weekend to stay with her sister for a bit. Said she'd text. She didn't. I stayed in the apartment. 1 bedroom, thin walls, bad Wi-Fi. The couch was too stiff. The light in the kitchen flickered if I ran the microwave too long. I got used to it. Sam came by less. Georgina didn't respond to anything that wasn't about schedules or school. She'd write things like, drop off at 5, or parent night Thursday. But nothing more. Nothing personal. Emily still hadn't said another word to me. I started working longer hours. Volunteered for weekends. Took on a regional role just to travel more. Chicago, Nashville, St. Louis. Airports felt safer than my own apartment. When I wasn't working, I ran. I started with a mile around the block. Then 3. Then 5. No headphones. No music. Just my feet on the pavement and the sound of my breath. At night, I'd sit on the edge of my bed and try to remember what I thought I was chasing. Sometimes I'd scroll through old photos. Sam as a toddler, Georgina in her choir dress. Our last vacation before everything cracked. I'd stare at them until the guilt swelled up and made me shut my phone off. Georgina never once asked why. Never once asked what Mallory had that she didn't. I think that was the worst part. She just let it happen. Like she'd seen it coming a long time before I did. One night, I got a call from my boss. He said, "There's a promotion opening up. There's more travel but more money. You interested?" I said, "Sure." Didn't even think about it. Didn't have anyone to think about it with. The night the final divorce papers came through, I sat on the floor with a beer, staring at the manila envelope. I didn't open it right away. Just let it sit there. Eventually, I opened it. Signed and sealed. Final. I didn't cry. Didn't drink more. Just stood up, put the paper in a drawer, and went to bed. That was the night I realized I'd finally gotten what I wanted. I was free. But I was also alone. It was early spring when Georgina called. I hadn't heard her voice in almost a year, not since the lawyers took over. I didn't recognize the number at first. Just saw it ring and let it go to voicemail. But when I played it, my stomach dropped. "Hey, it's Georgina. Can we talk? Not about logistics or the calendar. Just talk." I called her back that night. We met at a diner halfway between her place and mine. Not the kind of spot you choose for emotional conversations, too bright, too much clatter, but maybe that's why she picked it. She looked different. Lighter, somehow, but still familiar. We sat across from each other, not talking for a full minute. Then she said, "You're thinner." I nodded. "I run a lot now." She stirred her coffee, didn't look up. "Sam said you don't push him to talk." "I don't know what to say to him," I admitted. "I don't know how to make him not hate me." She looked up at that. "He doesn't hate you. He's hurt. It's different." We were quiet again. Then she said, "Why her?" I could have given a dozen answers. None of them would have made sense. So I just said I was lost. She was familiar. And I wanted to feel something again. Georgina nodded like she already knew that. "I kept thinking I did everything right," she said. "Built the life. Raised the kid. Gave space. Made the dinners. I kept thinking if I just kept going, you'd still be with me in it." "You did do everything right," I said. "I was the one who walked." She looked at me and for a second I thought she might cry. But she didn't. "I've been angry for a long time," she said. "Not just at you. At myself. For not seeing it coming. For seeing it and pretending I didn't." She took a sip of her coffee. Then said, "I don't want to get back together." I nodded. "I didn't think you did. But I also don't want to live in hate," she said. "Not for you. Not for myself. And not for Sam. I want him to see that people mess up. But also that they can make peace." I felt something shift in my chest then. Not relief. Not closure. Just space. Like I'd been holding my breath for too long and finally let a little out. "I'm sorry," I said. "For all of it." She nodded. "That's why I called," she said. I needed to hear that. We sat there for another hour. Talking about Sam. About work. About her choir students. About nothing. When the check came, I paid. As we stood outside, she looked at me and said, "He wants to come by next weekend. Give him space, but let him talk when he wants to." I said I would. Then she said, "Drake, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I need to." I didn't know what to say. So I just nodded. My throat was tight. My hands felt cold. She hugged me before she left. Just once. Quick, but real. And then she got in her car and drove off. I stood there for a long time after. The wind was cold. The street was quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a ghost in someone else's life. I just felt like a man who'd wrecked everything, but still showed up anyway, and somehow got a second chance, not at the same life, but at being someone who could carry the weight of it. Not the story I thought I'd live, but the one I lived just the same.